I mean, it sounds like from just listening to everybody that many of these migrants were misled about where they were being taken. They were tricked into these buses and on these planes. Is this really the best way for Republicans to shine the light on this issue?
Look, what's cruel is the fact that the Biden administration has had their head in the sand on this for months. And the days of them playing Baghdad Bob with the crisis at the border are over. Look, when you have policies in place with this administration with regard to Remain in Mexico and Title 42, which sends a welcome wagon to immigrants to come into this country, you have the obligation to make sure that they are processed and taken care of properly. And when they come into this country, the border towns of Texas and Arizona and also parts of Florida, they should not be subjected to the undue burden of caring for these people simply on the basis of proximity. So I think the proper thing to do is, this is an administration problem. They do not want to deal with this. So I think the governors were correct in making sure that this is an American problem and let other states also bear the burden, especially when they are sanctuary cities and states in many cases.
But the border, Alice, was not secure during the Trump administration. They separated children from their mothers during the Trump administration as a deterrent because the border was not secure at that point. Why weren't DeSantis and Abbott putting little kids on buses then?
Look, the point is the burden should not be on any specific place or any certain state or city. And the crisis has gotten tremendously worse. The Customs and Border Patrol are on track to deal with 2.3 million illegal immigrants coming into this country. The numbers are simply staggering, and it is just too much for these border states to handle.
And Maria, do you think the White House is doing enough on this? Should they get more engaged? Do they need to go after these states, put a stop to this?
I think they absolutely should go after these governors, Jim. Look, this is disgusting. This makes my blood boil. This is personal to me and so many Americans in this country. As you know, Jim, I am an immigrant, and there, but for the grace of God, go I and my family. This administration is on this. They are processing these folks at the border. And this is what is so vile, twisted, and corrupt about what these governors are doing. The Border Patrol and DHS agents that process these folks have now let them go, and they were going to go to where their family members were. That processing occurred. They are now being lied to. These governors are being deceitful. They are acting akin to human traffickers and abductors. They are telling these migrants that they are going to be reunited with their family members. They are telling these migrants that they have jobs ready for them, that they have housing ready for them. They are telling these migrants, Jim, that if they don't get on these buses, that their asylum claims might not be heard. I have talked to them. These are the most vulnerable people that exist in our society. They are not here illegally, by the way. We have a law in this country that says if you are afraid for your life, you can come into this country, and they are coming through legal ports of entry. They are not sneaking in. They are presenting themselves to Border Patrol, as is the process under the law, and they are seeking asylum. So these governors are putrid, corrupt, vile. I think they're criminal as well. And they are treating these migrants like trash, like second-class citizens. And they are saying to them, we hate you, we don't want you. And I believe that this is a huge message to all Latino voters in this country, to all immigrant voters in this country. Watch out. Today, it's these migrants. Tomorrow, it's going to be you.
What do you think, Alice? Watch out? Should Republicans watch out over this?
I think Democrats need to finally watch out and acknowledge there is a crisis at the border and do what we can to secure the border and enforce the existing immigration laws. Look, Customs and Border Patrol numbers show that nearly 70% of these people are economic migrants. So they don't qualify and are not classified as seeking asylum for reasons that many in the Northern Triangle
But they have
are.
the right to ask for it, and that's what they're doing.
No.
And then they're going to be processed. And if that's the case, Alice, if they are then, when they have their court dates, and they make that assumption or they make that claim that no, you are not going to be let in here because you're not an asylee per the law, then they will be removed. But that process is something that they deserve as human beings coming to this country to seek asylum. And these governors are cheating them out of that process.
They will still have the opportunity to do so. But the bottom line here is that these border states and border towns should not be subjected to the undue burden of this. And we need I remind you, President Biden and the Biden administration has flown people under cover of darkness to New York State and elsewhere across this country under similar circumstances. But
there's a plan in place. You know, when they put them on the plane and they land in a different jurisdiction, different state, different town, different city, the people on the other end know that they're coming. This is just dumping people in the, you know, on Martha's Vineyard or in Washington, D.C. in front of the vice president's place to own the libs. This is not owning the libs. This is hurting the kids. And here's the thing that you know, Alice, you know, Republicans like to talk about Democrats or socialists and so on. You know, these are, in many cases, Venezuelan asylum seekers, people who are fleeing a socialist dictatorship. Why are these Republican governors thumbing their nose at people who are coming and fleeing from a socialist dictatorship when you go after Democrats as socialists?
Look, I think a lot could be done differently. I think the most important thing, to your point, Jim, there should be more cooperation between where the planes and buses are coming from and going to help make sure there is assistance on the receiving end. But at this point right now, this is the way these governors want to deal with it. And if nothing else, it has certainly called attention to this. And Democrats are talking about the crisis at the border like they never have before.
Well, we've always talked about the crisis of the border, and we're actually the ones who have always pushed comprehensive immigration reform. And Alice, you know this. We've talked about this. It's always been Republicans that have shut the door on this. And there's a couple of points that I want to make. First of all, you're absolutely right. These are people that are fleeing these dictatorships. And what's so ironic is that a lot of Venezuelans and a lot of Cubans, a lot of Colombians too, they are supportive of DeSantis, or at least were, and they were in the last election as well. But now I caution my immigrant Latino brothers and sisters in these states, Venezuelans, Colombians, Cubans, look at what your governor's doing, perhaps to your familia. They're kicking them out of the country, out of the state, would like to kick them out of the country because they don't believe that they have the human dignity that we all believe that they should do and that they should have. And I think that's going to be a huge mistake on behalf of Republicans in seeking the Latino vote. And the second thing I would say is the Biden administration, Republicans love to talk about the Biden administration doing this in the cover of night. You know what they were doing, Alice, in the cover of night? They were reuniting the families that were separated, brutally separated, under the Trump administration. This, by the way, Jim, is no better. This is akin to that kind of family separation. It is egregious, it is inhumane, and it is cruel.
But I think more than anything, what we're doing is calling the Democrats' bluff. Vice President Harris says the border is secure. Mayorkas says the border is secure. It's not secure. And these sanctuary cities and states say they will welcome these people, and they are not. They are
welcoming these people,
and many times
with open arms, by the way.
But maybe we can all agree on one thing, which is don't use kids to make a political point.
Right.
Don't use kids to own the libs.
That's
the thing.
beings.
That's the thing that I think a lot of people will disagree with. And all right, we're not going to solve this debate now, but we'll do it again. Thanks, ladies, very much. Alice
Thanks so much,
Maria,
Jim.
appreciate it. Coming up, Russian forces on the run. But what they've left behind is nothing short of atrocious. CNN makes it to a mass burial site where 400 bodies were discovered, many of them with signs of torture. That's coming up. New horrors unearthed in the Ukrainian city of Izium after its liberation from Russian forces. Officials say a mass burial site with more than 400 bodies were found, many of them with signs of torture. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh takes us there, and we want to warn you, some of the images are disturbing.
Here is where the horror gets names and numbers. Russia's unprovoked invasion killed many, we knew, but only now, in liberated cities like Izium, are we finding out who and how. And even this rain cannot erase the smell, how death haunts these pines.